Unit 12, Current Issues in Sport. Today I'm going to be talking about the media and how it affects sport, and in particular football. So the media can be used both positively and negatively, and it also has a huge influence of the personal views of consumers. There are many different aspects to media, such as advertising or television rights. But the first point I want to talk about is advertising. So the big companies such as Nike and Adidas will promote their new equipment, such as like football boots or footballs, whatever it is. And to do this, they'll often work with the famous football players such as Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, because these are players that young children will look up to as role models. So then, obviously, if they see their role models with the new football boots, then they'll persuade their parents to go out and buy the football boots for them. Also, the football clubs themselves actually can use it as a source of income, because if you go to a football match at a stadium, then you'll see the advertising boards around the pitch, flicking through, like promoting new products, and also at half time you might see on the stadium screen the new products, because obviously at half time the audience won't be focused on the game, so they'll be more likely to take notice of these different products. And then when they've been advertised, then the companies will give the football club money, and then they can use that to put into funding of the club, or buying new players, etc. But this could lead to bias, because obviously the football clubs might not actually believe in the product that they're promoting, because they might just be doing it to get the money, and that's the sole purpose of what they're promoting it for. And the final little point I want to say on advertising is to talk about who actually chooses what is advertised on television, because for example, Rupert Murdoch, he owns Sky Sports, which is a major sporting channel which gets to broadcast like live football matches, and obviously he gets to choose what is advertised during the breaks and etc. So he has political views that others may not agree with, but he can use the advertising to his advantage, to get them to agree with his personal views. So the second point I want to talk about is entertainment, because really the sole purpose of the media is to entertain, and this isn't always a good thing, because this can lead to bias, because if there's no interesting stories going on like in the footballing world, then often the media will fabricate stories and just make things up to get people to buy their like magazines or newspapers or whatever. For example, the media will always imply that a manager's been sacked or something like that if they're on a recent like poor run of form, whereas in fact they haven't actually been sacked, and the media just want to get interest from football fans so they get money. However, the other side to it is that more interesting stories will increase the interest in the sport, like as a whole, so then that could increase participation if there's more people interested in the sport itself. Although there is an argument that more people watch or listen to sport than they play it, so maybe it wouldn't increase participation, because often people don't actually want to play the sport, they just like watching it. The third point I want to talk about is the television rights, because who or what gets to broadcast these live football matches is really important because uh, they they receive the money from it. So obviously, as you can imagine, there's always a big like argument over who gets to broadcast these games. And recently, there's actually been a deal worth billions of pounds over who gets to broadcast these games, because the main two businesses now are BT Sport and Sky Sports, and they're literally paying like billions now to show these games, because obviously football fans around the world they can't always go to the live game at the stadium, so the second best option to that is watching it on telly. However, not always people agree with the opinion that watching it on telly is better than watching in the stadium. Is better than watching it on the telly, because on the telly you can get different like camera angles, and you can look at it from different perspectives to get a more correct view. It's quite a clever. They use television rights in quite a clever way to get more money, because obviously they know that fans of football clubs will pay money to watch these games, because they just do. That's what a fan does. So obviously they know if they have these rights, they're going to get that. It's basically guaranteed money. So this actually leads on to my final point, which is all about analysis. Like I was saying there, on telly there's different camera angles and other technologies like goal line technology, which prevents unfair bias, as it is more objective, and it basically proves the point, rather than if you're at a live game, then you don't often see see the correct decision, and then you'll basically go off of what the referee is saying, but the referee doesn't always make the correct decision. However, on these channels such as Sky Sports and BT Sport, there are always pundits. For example, on Sky Sports there's Jamie Carragher, who will always analyse the match after, and then, but that leads me to think, what is it to say that his opinion is actually right? Because surely isn't it down to personal opinion? So yeah, that can lead to bias and criticising a certain team unfairly, because Jamie Carragher, for example, is a Liverpool fan, and if he's just watched a Liverpool game, he might have certain views which lead towards Liverpool being the better team, whereas that may not be the case. Also, factors such as age and gender could come into it. If the pundits, if they're older or whatever, they might have different views than the younger ones because they're the new generation coming through and see the sport in a different way, perhaps, because obviously the sport was different back in the old days, where it was in a way more violent sometimes, and you could get away with more things, whereas now you often see players going down easily after a tackle when they didn't need to go down, but they just know that they could get a free kick from it. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say on media, but just want to conclude it all now and talk about whether it has an overall positive or negative influence, because obviously there are both positive and negatives to it. Like for example, with positives, you can say that it informs an audience of footballing events around the world, and this, as a result, increases and improves the globalization of the game, because people might not just be interested in the league of their home nation, but then they can actually spread out their interest to different countries and watch games from different leagues. However, like I mentioned earlier, the media, it's all about getting money, so the sources will do whatever they can to get that money, and this can lead to fabrication, like I was saying. That's pretty much all I've got to say, but in my personal opinion, we do need media, because without it there wouldn't be as much interest in the sport, and at the end of the day that is actually how people are informed of the game, and it's basically how we get new participators in the game. So without it, like I was saying, it will result in less participation, but in a way I do see it as a negative as well, because it's just really misleading, and it can actually sort of be a waste of time in the end, because you get all involved in these, thinking, oh, this manager's been sacked, or this player's been suspended, or whatever it is, and in fact they haven't actually done anything wrong. So yeah, it can go either way really. It can be used positively, but then yeah, there's also negative aspects to it. So that's my personal view on media and football. Thanks for listening.